One. We are live. Hello, Mr. Jason Rodriguez. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. Good morning.
Good morning. You had your coffee and everything?
I have my coffee with me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Interesting, interesting mug.
Yes. You know who that is?
Looks like a very cool Abraham Lincoln.
Very cool. It's mug from Fourscore Coffee Shop in Roseville. So, shout out to Luke and the team there in Fourscore. Liberating coffee.
That's kind of where I wanted to start this podcast. So I'm glad you brought this up or had a prop. That's good.
Hey, I got something else before you get started. Well, did you introduce me? Anybody know who I am?
I was going to introduce, this is going to be in the description, but basically is introduce Jason Rodriguez. You are my brother. That's probably your highest credit.
Achievement, yeah. I achieved that before you were, well, I guess I didn't achieve that before you were born. It wasn't until you were born. Your birth gave me my greatest achievement.
Yes, you needed me even then. Yeah, Jason is an entrepreneur. He was a licensed minister in the past, has lots of history of that. But anyways, let's talk about coffee.
Before I get into that, I just thought of something because I was running a little bit late, as you know, and I apologize for that. But as I was, tell you what happened. The love of my life, Missy, who you've had her on as a guest as well. She left the house this morning, a little bit of a rush, a little bit of a hurry, and she got to work. And shortly after she got to work, she texts me, and she's like, "Hey, I out of the house and too fast. I need something to eat. Can you bring me something?" So I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure." So I run down to the bagel shop, local bagel shop, grab a couple bagels, and I'm on my way. I'm driving the bagels over there, and I thought, next great business idea, food delivery. What if somebody created an app where instead of her texting me to take her food, like she could place an order and they would bring the food to her. Somebody would bring the food to her. What do you think?
I think they have that, but I don't think that's all the service that she was looking for. There's an added service when her beloved yourself brings her it's kind of, is it like almost like a domineering type of move though?
I don't know. You know what it is? I'll order something off a menu, and she will order something else, and then when the food comes, she will want what I ordered. She just likes what I bring her. So
that's a good thing though. That's
yeah.
not a bad thing.
No, not at all. Not at all. So here's what I did. I ordered 2 bagels, exactly the kind that I like, because I knew that she was going to want my bagel. So real easy switch. Oh, you want my bagel? Here you go, love.
Either way.
Still got my own bagel, the kind that I like.
Now, are you picky with your bagels, or do you try different flavors, or you stick with the same?
No, I'm not picky with my bagels as long as they don't have onions on them, jalapenos, sesame seeds, or anything weird.
Have you in the Bay Area? It's very popular to have that bagel like pizza sandwich. Have you ever had one of those? The pepperoni, cheese. It's kind of like a pizza but bagel pizza.
No. I've not even and I don't do any like actual like breakfast bagels with like ham or anything like that. I just straight bagel cream cheese, plain cream cheese. I do plain cream cheese.
Cream cheese. I can eat. I like the breakfast sandwich. I was hooked on the breakfast bagels for a while, or the croissant. I love a good croissant.
Croissant?
Yeah. I got rid of the cheese. It used to be egg, cheese, bacon, and I don't get lettuce if that comes on it. But I started ditching the cheese, thinking it might be a little healthier. I was also going to Burger King and ordering the large tater tots that they have, extra crispy. And I didn't realize that that was like 600 calories. Just a large deep fry. I didn't really, I knew it wasn't good. I knew it wasn't good for me, but I thought it was like maybe 200, 300 calories. But yeah, it was like 600. So I had to cut that out.
That's funny. So, so you like croissants? You like croissants?
Okay, so I can have, so I'm, my eating is kind of weird. I have to have, if it's soft, like the croissant soft, the eggs, if it's ham, I need something crunchy to go with it. That's where my problem was with the crunchy Burger King potatoes. I need that crunch. If it has bacon in it and it's a little crunchy bacon, which I don't usually prefer, I like a little medium bacon, but on the sandwich, I need that crunch. It's kind of like a regular sandwich. I have to have chips with it. I can't just eat, I can't eat a burger by itself. I can't eat a sandwich. I need that texture to go along with it. I'm not even tasting my food. I'm tasting the chips. It's, I don't know. I'd be better off just eating the chips and just skipping the sandwich. Less calories.
Right. Right, but you'd have to eat more chips, so it might be an even trade-off there.
That's correct. Last night we went. Have you guys been to House of Juju? They're in Clovis.
No.
Juju, Juju, not Jewejew. It's we looked it up. It sounded weird when I first brought it up or whatever. But Juju is kind of. Have you heard Juju? Like that's some Juju.
Yeah, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
I had a feeling, but we looked it up, and it's kind of like a mystical, spiritual place, kind of for cleansing or healing. But it was an interesting name. It's the place right if you go to the farmers market on Friday nights in Clovis, have the musical kind of stage there. Off to the left is the House of Juju, and off to the right was oh man, what was it called? Something Brew, Blast Brew. They had like 38 draft beers there. I thought you guys might like that spot too. Pizza, I think it's a Pizza Blast place with the brew. But we went there. We took my oldest son and his girlfriend for like a date type of thing. And so, anyways, they had burgers there, and I hate going to places and eating a burger. I'd rather you spoiled me actually. I don't know if you know this or not, but my very first burger was barbecued by yourself. Your hand flipped it and cared for it. And you know how when you have that first experience with something like it, that to me in my mind that was the best burger I've ever had in my whole life. Which it was probably pretty good. I don't know. Maybe it sucked, but it was the first burger I ever had. It tasted amazing, and I remember back to that point many, many times. Do you recall that moment?
No, not at all.
It was at Dad's house in the backyard. I don't know. Just made a burger. It's probably normal for you, but I didn't eat meat. You know, growing up, I went to a boarding school where it was a vegetarian boarding school, so all they talked about was meat, the kids. And so I was like, I got to try this meat. And so anyways, yeah, you made that burger. But you make a good burger, or at least I recall. I don't know if you've ever made a burger since then for me, but I remember that burger. But I would rather make my own burger than go to like an Applebee's, a Chili's, and have them make I'm never happy. It's kind of like breakfast food for me. So we went there because my son, Nicholas, wanted a burger place. So we picked that place, never been there before. And I felt at ease when we ordered the burger and they delivered it with like a steak knife.
Yeah.
I felt good. Anytime they come with a steak knife, you know it's going to be big, thick, and juicy.
Thick, yeah.
I relaxed. It was a great burger. I just had the patties and cheese, bacon, avocado, no lettuce, no bun, roasted potatoes. What was that?
No onion.
No onions. But I've been trying to, so I, cut it up, just had the meat. It was good. I don't know why we got to start talking about burgers.
No, I don't either, but I understand that there's a barbecue this evening.
Yeah, if you guys have that open
I,
invitation.
I'm bringing a burger.
Okay.
I'm bringing a burger. You think the first burger I made for you was good? I have found now I've got the secret recipe for what I think is the best burgers. And this isn't just even like, this is not me bragging about me because it really isn't my doing. I've found this secret. And I took this, I wanted to share it so much that we took a bunch of these burgers with us. One of the last times, I think it was for Father's Day, we went to Missy's family's and they were barbecue. And so we took a bunch of these burgers there, and her dad loves the barbecue, right? So we took a bunch of these burgers, and not for everybody. Oh, he was just in heaven. He was just like, oh, this is so good. I knew he would like them because people like yourself that enjoy a good burger.
Yeah.
This is a good burger. So be prepared.
It's been 22 years, so hopefully.
And you can cook it yourself. It's not in the cooking. It's in the meat. So
yeah.
Quality. It's always about the quality of the ingredients, the meat.
Yes. Oh, I think we were talking about breakfast and.
We were talking about croissants, and I was going to tell you, you mentioned Clovis, but in both Clovis and Fresno, a gentleman that I built a home for, so one of my homeowners, he owns a place that's a French eatery.
Yeah.
So they've got all of the, croissants and, just all the little French food. Sorry, this probably could plug it better than that, but, but fantastic. I think it's called, and I'll kill it because I'm not French, but it's Le Parisian Cafe.
Okay.
So there's one.
Oh, I love that
downtown Clovis, Old Town Clovis.
I love that place. I've been there. That's where I go for my croissant sandwich. It comes with a little salad. I say, keep the salad. But that's a really good place. They sell the little macaroons and stuff.
Macaroons, yeah.
They do
He's actually French. He's actually French.
Yeah, they do the crepes. Nicholas, my oldest, he loves that place they got a Nutella crepes and all that.
So I got last time the Nutella and banana.
Okay, so you've been?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right
there.
I
went because he brought me a bunch of pastries one day.
Okay.
He came and brought a bunch of pastries, and so I took them home, and ate them all, and I ate like all of them. I was like, man, this place is pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So. Yep. I don't know how we just tried it one time, but the croissant was very good. I like that place a lot.
I had been going to the other place in Fig Garden, right?
The patio?
La Boulangerie, that one?
Okay, I've seen it.
Yeah, okay. So I had been going there, and there's always a line out the door, and there's some good stuff. Don't get me wrong. There's some good stuff there, but customer service sucks. Like, they suck.
Allegedly.
Yeah, legitimately. So anyway, so I wasn't real happy with that, and so I was like, yeah, I wish there was another place. Well, so I meet this guy, and I'm like, oh yeah, so that I got my new place, and he's actually French. The other people that own the other place, I won't say, but they're not French.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what French food is though. I never thought, hey, let's go have some French food.
Yeah, it's not French fries, I'll tell you that.
No, I'm trying to think. It's like, is it separate or is it the same thing as what do they call it, Basque or something? Bisque?
Oh, yeah, it's different.
Is it different?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know bagels. Going back to bagels. I like a good cinnamon raisin and regular cream cheese, or a blueberry bagel with blueberry cream cheese.
Is this going on the Food Channel? You have probably lost. You've had me on and probably lost like 90% of your viewership already.
That's okay. I make videos with people that I want to talk to for about whatever I want to talk to them about. That way it's easy. But do you remember the first time I had a bagel?
No, but I remember the first time I had a bagel.
Might have been in the same moment. Probably not, because you're just so the audience knows, you're 5 years older than me, even though you look younger. 5 years older. But the first time I remember having a bagel, and I don't even know how old I was. You might remember how old we were. I'm assuming that you were there. I don't remember you being there, but it was on the boat to Catalina Island.
That's funny. That's funny. That's the first time I had a bagel.
Okay, maybe
So
not
same memory. Same memory.
the same the
Either
same
it's
trip.
a glitch. Either it's a glitch in the matrix, or I don't know whether it was the same trip but Susie and Fritz Steve were with us.
Okay, I don't remember anything else.
At least with my experience.
How many do you remember going more than once to Catalina with our parents, or what?
We've been more than once, yeah.
Okay, I only remember the one time. I remember the sharks, being scared to death. I must have been pretty small, young, but I remember looking out and seeing all these sharks going, does nobody else see all these sharks?
Were they sharks or dolphins? They're probably dolphins.
It might have been. I feel a lot better now. I don't know. I always thought they were sharks, and I thought, this is insane. Why are we out here with all the sharks? But yeah, I remember getting the bagel, the cream cheese. It was just a bunch of cream cheese. For some reason, that locked in as a really good bagel. So,
isn't that funny? Yeah, same memory, same experience. And I mean, shoot, it couldn't have been a great bagel. I mean, it couldn't have been.
Just plain.
It's on a boat, you know.
Yeah.
A little ferry, right?
No, you're right. If you go on a train.
No, I can remember the taste of the cream cheese.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get off of food and go back to coffee.
Okay.
But I was thinking about it. You mentioned it last time we talked off air. You reminded me, I forget what you said, but we were sitting talking at a coffee place, and you kind of mentioned something.
High Top Coffee.
High Top Coffee, Fresno, right across.
Tower District, Fresno. Yep. Uh-huh.
Yep. But I recall, I had forgotten that I don't know, how would you describe what you are when it comes to coffee, or what's your level of interest or like or love? Do you just love it, or are you really actually very knowledgeable? What's your expertise? What is all that coffee stuff?
Well, probably just knowledgeable enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, compared to people that this is funny. I took a quiz last night, and a quiz, an online quiz, like a personality quiz. It's called the Dark Triad quiz, right? And it shows some of your negative characteristics and how strong they are, and they come out in you. And so
we are recording, just to remind you.
So one of the things that came out was, I'm a know-it-all. So I think I'm always right. I think I always know what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna try to be realistic here and say that, I probably don't know that much about.
So you know enough to be upset with your coffee most of the time.
No, I know what I like. Definitely, yeah. I know what I like or what I don't like. So obviously as a child, you don't grow up drinking coffee, or you shouldn't. You shouldn't be growing up drinking coffee. But maybe in today's world with Starbucks on every corner, more kids grow up with coffee drinks. You know, that was not, there was not a Starbucks in our town until, I mean, I was probably 30 before I ever had Starbucks. So previous to that, my experience with coffee growing up was non-existent. Our parents did not drink coffee. And it wasn't until my dad married Diane and that I probably ever had coffee. But I remember Diane coming in and she would make coffee every morning. And what she would do is she would make the coffee and she had this little powdered creamer. And so she would take a scoop of the powdered creamer, like 2 scoops of sugar, and put the coffee and mix it up and give me that was my coffee. So it was pretty sweet. I mean, it was a pretty sweet coffee, but it was just, I think it was probably Folgers, and just nothing fancy, just Folgers coffee. So that was my first experience with coffee. And honestly, it was really sweet, but that was because she made it up that way. The coffee itself was terrible. Like if you just had the coffee just straight, terrible. Now I drink my coffee black. I just drink it just straight up because I've grown to enjoy the actual taste of the various coffees. And so what happened was going to Starbucks. So I was about 30 and Starbucks came to town. Now before that there was Juice and Java. You remember Juice and Java in Porterville? Yep. So there was Juice and Java, and they did like smoothie drinks, like blended drinks and stuff. And they had coffee too, but I don't know that I ever tried their actual coffee. I just went for like their, they didn't call them frappuccinos, but their blended drinks, right?
Yeah.
So when Starbucks came to town, I remember going, I worked out of town at the time. And so I remember going in the morning, very, very early, right when they open, first thing in the morning, right when they open. I think it was probably like 5 o'clock. It was pretty early. I remember going in the first time and they had just opened and they were giving away free samples of their coffee. And so I tried their coffee. It was Pike's Place is what coffee it was. I remember it. And so I tried it. I thought, oh, this is Starbucks. This is the juggernaut of coffee. This is going to be great. I tried the coffee. It was terrible. Terrible. God, it was terrible. I was like, this, and I told them, I was like, oh, this is terrible. So they said, well, what do you like? I said, well, I don't like this. I like something sweet. Let me get some sweet. So Genevieve, I remember her name was Genevieve. She's like, okay, what you want then is a caramel macchiato. So she got me hooked, and I mean hooked, probably to the tune of like 30 pounds that I put on by drinking these caramel macchiatos over the next number of years. Like, oh God, how bad I mean, it tasted good. Don't get me wrong. It tasted good.
I just had my first one 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, be leery.
It was
a lot of. How did you handle that? Aren't you lactose intolerant?
Yeah, I had like 2 sips of one of my kids got it. We were in Nevada visiting Dad, and a little coffee place they had there. It looked, the only reason I tried it was it looked so good, and I've been I just started drinking coffee. Miss K makes a cup in the morning, and that's the first time I've been drinking coffee. But I want to get into it. It's kind of it looks interesting. I see all these people with their different drinks, coffee drinks. They all look different. So I've been wanting to try, take a sip of everything and get familiar with it.
Yeah.
But it tasted amazing. It was.
Yeah, no, it was good. But the ones from Starbucks anyway were whole milk. I was getting a venti, as they call it, which is their large. I don't know how many ounces that is, but it's like 32 ounces or something, 20 ounces. Anyway, a lot of calories. You go back to calories. You get a lot of calories every single morning. That's how I was starting my day off. So I gained a lot of weight. And I was like, why am I getting so fat? Like, didn't put the two together. So we ended up moving, excuse me, we ended up moving up to Sacramento area, Roseville, and we lived in these apartments, and across the street from the apartments, this new coffee shop opened up. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna go check out just right across the street, I'm gonna go check out the new coffee shop. And I went in this place, and it was different, definitely different than Starbucks. It had a total like hipster vibe to it. And so I go walking in there, quickly realizing that I am out of my element, like looking around, like I don't look like the other people, I'm like, okay, this is different. So I go up to the counter. It's my turn at the counter. I'm looking at the menu. I remember looking at the menu, and on the menu there's espresso, cappuccino, latte, mocha. That's like it. Maybe there was Gibraltar in there or something. That was it. It was a very limited menu. I'm like, okay, no frappes, no caramel macchiatos. What's up? And they're like, yeah, you ain't in Starbucks here, buddy. Yeah. I was like, okay, so what's going on? What's the deal? and so I began to learn. The guy started teaching me. He said, this is what at the time they called it a third wave coffee shop. Third wave, okay. So then I started to learn the history of like the evolution of coffee shops through through history. And basically, like, I'll give you a quick version. So
take your time. It's interesting.
You know the show Friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever watched it, but they hung out in a coffee shop. That would be considered a second wave coffee shop. So third wave was like more so about the coffee, right? Like coffee, going back to like coffee purism, right? And so they made it about the coffee. So what was interesting was this guy said, okay, you've had coffee from these other places, right? I was like, yeah, I don't really like it, to be honest with you. I never really had a cup of coffee that I like without pouring a bunch of sugar into it. He said, okay, let me have you try this coffee. I'll have you try some coffee. So he gives me a little sample of their coffee, and it's just black. It's just black. And so he's like, okay, give it a minute, let it cool down just a minute. All right. So we sit there, we're talking, and he's like, okay, try the coffee. So I take a little sip, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. That's not terrible. Like, yeah. So what I began to learn was that there are different coffees based on growing regions around the world. So you can get coffees from Africa, Ethiopia. You'll oftentimes find an Ethiopian coffee. You can get coffees in South America, different regions in South America, from Brazil to Mexico, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Nicaragua. So all these different regions grow coffee. Hawaii grows coffee. And each region, their coffee tastes different. It actually tastes different. You can taste the difference. So one thing that's very interesting about, and this is in general, but in general about coffee from Ethiopia, is that it has a strong, a lot of times it'll have a heavy blueberry taste to it.
Okay.
Okay, and I mean, think about that. That's weird to say, coffee that tastes like blueberry. Yeah. Right? Like what's up with that? And it's a trip. Okay. A lot of coffees are a mixture, meaning are a blend. Okay, meaning they'll take a little bit of this coffee bean, mix it with this coffee bean, and the roaster will find a blend of coffees that he likes, his palate likes, and it becomes, they put a name on it, it becomes whatever name the coffee is. But what I learned in this particular coffee shop back there in Roseville was I learned about single origin coffee, meaning coffee from one specific place. Ethiopia, Brazil,
Yeah.
Guatemala. And as I tried these different coffees, I found what I like the best from single origin. Now I'll still do blended coffees, just to try it up. But I became fascinated with the fact that you can have coffees from different regions and those coffees taste different. Now, on top of that, another thing that factors into it is the way that the roaster roasts the coffee. So there's, Starbucks made dark roast all the rage, right? Like dark roast, and that was very popular. Personally, I don't like dark roast coffees. Just the taste to me off-putting. I don't like it.
What does dark roast mean?
It's pretty literal. So if you were to take the actual coffee beans, so most people when they buy coffee, they buy ground coffee. So you don't see the bean. Okay, I buy my coffee whole bean coffee and I grind it myself here at the house. So I actually see the coffee bean. So if you took the coffee that I drink, if you took the coffee bean and you put it next to one of the dark roast coffee beans from Starbucks, you would quite literally see the difference in the coffee bean itself. One is light, the other is dark, and then if we grabbed another one, there's a medium in there as well. Okay. So you got light roast, medium roast, dark roast. The dark roast coffee, if you ever see it in those cylinders on top of the espresso machines where they grind it up, if you look inside the cylinder, you can see the whole beans.
Yeah.
The dark roast coffee is going to be very oily. It's going to be very dark. It's going to look oily. So I mean that's
so you can have dark, medium, or whatever they call it, from the same region.
Yes. So exactly. So you could take that. Let's say you like an Ethiopian coffee. You could take that coffee bean from a specific farm, right? And you could roast that coffee a light roast. You could roast that same bean to medium roast, and you could roast that same bean to a dark roast. That same bean.
Hold on one second. So I think I'm understanding you now. So it's the same bean. When you say roast, you gotta dumb it down for me here.
Sure.
Is that they're taking the same bean? They're baking it. Okay.
I mean, they're roasting it. It's actually roasting.
In an oven type of thing, roasting it, and that's what changes that. So it's not three separate beans. It's the one type of bean, and the way they roast it makes it the dark. Okay, I got you now.
Yeah. So for example, we're gonna cook steaks tonight.
Yeah.
Right? We got 3 steaks. You could cook three steaks from the same damn cow, right? You could take one of those steaks. You could cook it rare. You could cook it medium. You could cook it well done. Same thing. You got a little coffee tree. You take the beans from that coffee tree. One's light roast. You roast one light, one medium, one dark. Okay. Same bean.
Got it.
3 different tastes. Three different results.
Yeah. Okay.
Goes better. It gets better than that even. Gets better than that, because now you've roasted the coffee, right? Okay, now you go into the preparation of the coffee. How are you going to prepare the coffee? Okay, you could make an espresso. Okay, you can make an espresso, which is going to push a lot of pressure of water through a little bit of coffee grounds, and is going to come out this just rich, creamy espresso. Fabulous. I mean, it's very strong. I wouldn't start with that. You're going to work your way up to that one. But there's espresso. So that's one way of taking that same coffee bean and preparing it. Okay. The other way is in your coffee pot at home. You take that bean, you grind it up to the right grind size. So you can adjust your grinder based on the method that you're going to prepare this coffee. So you adjust your grinder, the appropriate grind size, and you put the coffee grounds in the filter, and you make your coffee in the Mr. Coffee, right?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
That same bean is going to taste very different as a coffee coming out of the Mr. Coffee pot compared to a little shot of espresso. Very, very different. But it's the same coffee. It's the same roast.
Yeah.
Then you've got you've heard of French press. That's the glass container, oftentimes with the black top, and it's got the little lever on it that you push down at the end. No. Okay.
Oh, I mean, I've heard of the name, but I've never seen it done.
Okay, that's a non-filtered way of preparing coffee. There is no filter. There's a little screen in there that keeps the grind, the coffee grind from getting in your finished product, so you're not drinking the. but it's what's interesting about that, if you ever have one. Is when you get to the bottom of the cup, the bottom of the cup is dirty. You get to that, when you get down to that last, you don't want to drink the last drink because it's got like silt down at the end of it. So it's that give you a very different taste. My preference, just personally, my preference is it's the why am I forgetting? It's because I'm old. But anyway, there's all different types of the preparation that you can do. So they all give you a different taste.
Okay. Yeah, I was I never had coffee. I tasted a sip of coffee at Jim and Sonia's house one time. It was during an election. I think one of the Bushes was getting elected. I don't know why I remember that, but yeah, we were over there. I think Michael was really into politics at that moment. We were still pretty young. I was probably only 12 or whatever. But I remember tasting it. It was just horrible. It was just black coffee. And I never tried it again until I started doing business meetings where I would meet someone in a Starbucks, and I didn't know what to order. I had never tried anything or tasted anything. So I had a friend that I worked with kind of give me a guideline. So she said, start out with a chai latte, which I don't think is coffee, but it was from Starbucks. And then, yes, then she said like a vanilla bean frappuccino with Java chips blended in. And those two drinks have been my drinks for forever. And neither one of them are coffee, really. They don't taste like coffee. Until Miss K, about a year ago, she makes a cup of coffee every morning, just the Folgers, like you talked about. French vanilla creamer, no added sugar. And I'll take maybe 2 or 3 sips of that, and that's about it. But it's always been one of those things that I've wanted to kind of get into, explore. So yeah, I'm just a rookie at it. But what I was gonna say is when I look at the sign, I mean, I have no idea what cappuccino, espresso, and what all that stuff means or meant. So listening to you explain it, it's actually very interesting.
Yeah. I think it is very interesting.
Which region do you like the most?
You know, I'm going to answer that the opposite way. So I'm going to answer that by saying that personally, the one that I just don't like is Ethiopia. It's the weirdest thing. I mentioned the blueberry. It's just the weirdest thing to me to taste coffee and it tastes like blueberry. I'm just like, I don't want my coffee to taste like that. So I don't like that.
It makes me want to try it though.
But this is interesting too. So you do hot coffee or you can do cold coffee. You can brew coffee hot in hot water. Believe it or not, you can brew coffee in cold water. Now it takes a lot longer. That's like a 24-hour process. but you can do what's called a cold brew. Now, I do like Ethiopian coffee as a cold brew. It tastes more, to me, it tastes more like a tea in that sense, or in that method. So and it does taste good. I like it. I like it that way. But I mean, a lot of people love Ethiopian coffee. I mean, everybody's palate is different. What you like versus what somebody else is going to like, it's all different. So I mean, it's just a matter of trying different things. And that's one of the things that I love about coffee, is that it's also different. You know, every coffee shop I go to is going to provide a different experience. I mean,
Yeah.
regardless, it just is.
Yeah, because once you get into variables, there's like millions of different ways
Oh,
of.
so many. Yeah, so many.
I didn't know we were gonna get the full explanation. I'm glad we did, because I feel like it actually makes sense now. I like you said, cold brew. I hear cold brews. That's what they're actually doing. They're the cold brew, like a Starbucks that you despise. That's what they're. Okay, that makes sense now. I just thought it was because it was cold. I didn't even put it.
Yeah, well, okay, so there's a difference between iced coffee
Yeah, that's
and
what I was just
cold
thinking.
brew.
Now it makes sense. I was putting them together.
Yeah, no, there's a difference. I mean, you could take a hot cup of coffee and pour it over ice, and you got an iced coffee.
Yeah.
But then there's a cold brew, which is actually you're brewing that coffee cold. It's cold, you know, being brewed with cold water. This is really cool. I don't know them. I don't know what it's called. There is an actual mechanism that has a name. It's Japanese, I think, in origin, and it's a glass. So up at the top is kind of a big glass jug, and then there's a kind of a spiral down, and then down at the bottom is another capture, another jug to capture the liquid. Excuse me. And up at the top is the water and the coffee grinds. And there's a little lever on it that adjusts the flow of water through the mechanism. And you want to go rather slowly. And over, I don't remember how long it is, but it's over a period of probably a couple of days that this water slowly makes its way through the coffee grinds and brews this, becomes a cold brew coffee. That's a cool one. That's a cool one just for the visual.
Yeah.
The way that they do it. Yeah. So.
Have you? Now, is there something? I mean, we can eventually move on, but this is interesting. What is it that you would like to try that you haven't tried, or what's a coffee experience that you're kind of like, I gotta get this done this year, or maybe the next 5 years?
There's a coffee that a cat poops out. So I've never done that one.
There's certain life experiences that you don't have to do.
Yeah.
You actually want to try that one?
I mean, I don't know if it'll be on my bucket list, but I mean that's a very unique experience. Yeah.
I bet. But is there something that you really want to, like, you're like, oh, I got to find a place that does it this way? Or you just kind of, you're good right now?
I mean, I mean, beyond the cat pooping the coffee out, beyond that, I don't know of any that, I mean, I don't know of anything that I haven't had. One time, there's a thing called a siphon.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. You don't see that often. It's very labor intensive. So to get a cup of coffee through this method probably costs you about $8, $10 for a regular sized cup of coffee. So, and you just don't see many places do not do that. I've only had it one time. So this is something that I would like to do again. I'll probably just buy one for myself and just do it. Missy thinks it's funny how long it takes me to make coffee in the morning as it is. I mean, I manually make my coffee. It's not like it's a ritual. You know, it's not like I just go in and push a button and coffee's made, 2 minutes later. I make my coffee. It's a morning ritual that I do. And that's part of what I like about it, I think. Yeah. But the siphon, I think that's what it's called. I could be wrong. See, I don't know everything, but I think that's what it's called. But it's this, think of it as a burner. So there's a little burner down at the bottom. Then there's this glass thing, right? Okay. And then there's another glass thing up top, kind of an hourglass shape, right? And there's a chain, and you put the coffee in, you put the water, and the water's down on the bottom. Excuse me, there's the coffee grounds. You light it up, right? You burn it, you turn it on. And a bong? And the water, yeah, right? There might be some similarities, I don't know. And the water starts boiling, right? The water starts getting hot, and it goes up. It gets sucked up the tube into the top part. So the bottom part starts with the water. It gets sucked up the tube into the top where the coffee is, and then it starts, percolating, and then they swap places. So that is a cool thing to watch visually.
I was gonna ask.
Watch the coffee get made. I think that also originates in Japan. So I don't know why, but for some reason in Japan, the Japanese have got seem to be kind of cutting edge when it comes to coffee methods and stuff. So maybe going to Japan for coffee would be on my list.
Good. I got a ton of questions. We could talk about coffee for a while, but last question, I guess, is do you have a wide variety of coffees that you like to make? Do you like to mix it up, or have you found one that's like your everyday bean, I guess?
Well, let's see. I mix it up, but sourcing the coffee, I mean, I guess I ought to utilize the internet more than I do, and I just don't. I just don't order stuff on the internet much. So I suppose any coffee I want is available to me if I just order it on the internet. But that's not how I get stuff. I go to a store and I buy stuff. So, I go to Whole Foods and they have a selection of coffee, which I'm happy with, but it's always the same selection of coffee. So there are a few different coffees there that I pick up, from Whole Foods that I kind of go through. But anytime we go on a trip, which now due to COVID has not been very often, but anytime we go on a trip, one of the things that is on my list of things to do, there's two things when I go on a trip somewhere new that we're going to do. We're going to find a pizza place, and we're going to find a coffee shop. So wherever I go and I find a coffee shop, and I'll pick up, if I find a coffee there that I like, I'll pick up a coffee and bring it back home so that I have that.
So as someone who is just starting on this path of coffee, what do you recommend me trying or starting, just like the regular, if I go somewhere, it's not Starbucks, what should I order? I've had but it was just at a restaurant. We went to Monterey. It was a breakfast place. It was like a white chocolate. It was a hot drink. So hot chocolate, white chocolate mocha. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even remember, but it was good.
Yeah. See, and that was the challenge that I had, right? Because I went from my everyday ritual of the caramel macchiato, which was super sweet, to you know, to trying to walk into this coffee shop. It's called Bloom. Walking in Bloom and meeting the guy there and him starting to talk to me. I was just so fascinated about it that I was like, okay, let me try it. I had remembered my previous experience, specifically at Starbucks with their Pikes Peak. I remembered how bad that tasted. Okay, I remember, and so I was like, I don't know if I don't think I'm gonna like this. I said, no, try it. And so I tried the straight coffee, and I was like, that actually was. I don't want to say it was good.
Yeah.
But it was noticeably different, better than the coffee that I had at Starbucks. So I put this to the test myself with Missy's parents. So they came over and stayed with us. And Missy's dad drinks coffee. He's a regular coffee drinker, but he does the coffee in the Keurig. So it's whatever little K-cup or that happens to have. I don't know which one he drinks, but that's what he drinks. It's not a high quality coffee. So I didn't say anything. I just made him a cup of coffee the way that I make coffee. And I gave it to him. And he was like blown away. He was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I'm glad for his sake that I've come into his life, because he's experienced better burgers, he's experienced better coffee. But I was curious to know, in a blind test, would he taste the difference in this coffee that I get him, or would he just drink the coffee like it's his regular coffee?
Yeah, or if it was just all hype.
I didn't say nothing. I just made the coffee and gave it to him. He noticed the difference.
Yeah.
But you're not a coffee drinker. And, so coffee is like, I'm going to say it's like wine in the sense that it's going to be, or beer for me. I hate beer.
Yeah.
And I have tried craft beer. You mentioned that place down in Clovis has got whatever number of beers on tap. I don't like beer. And I've been to places like that. And I've tried a flight of beers, of different beers from, I don't even know much about beer, but from one end of the scale to the other to try to find something that I like. And you know what? I just don't like beer. I don't like it. So, so coffee is going to be probably an acquired taste, especially if you're accustomed to drinking something sweet, because it's not going to be sweet. So to answer your original question, what I would recommend if you're going to want to go on a journey from weaning yourself off of the super sugary sweet stuff at Starbucks and move towards drinking actual real coffee, I would go to a place like High Top and start with a mocha or a latte. I would say probably a mocha, because a mocha is still going to be a little bit of, that chocolate. I don't know if you like chocolate, but it's still going to be a little bit sweet. It's not overly sweet, but there's still going to be a little bit of sweetness to it. A vanilla latte might be another way to go. And then after you've done that for a little while and you've grown accustomed to that, then you can take a step down the ladder, right? I think that's the way that I see it. So you got super sweet up here, and then you got straight like espresso down here at the very bottom, right? You're starting up here, and you want to step down the ladder in terms of sweetness to you get to the very raw form. You mentioned earlier not knowing the difference between cappuccinos, lattes, the different drinks, macchiatos. So, a caramel macchiato at Starbucks is quite different than a macchiato at a third wave coffee shop. So, starting at the bottom, you've got espresso, which is just, it's a ounce and a half of just straight coffee coming out of the espresso machine. So that's going to be very strong in taste. And then working up the ladder, it's all about the amount of milk and foam that's added. So a macchiato is going to be, you know, that same amount of espresso, shot of espresso, with, you know, a certain amount of a little bit of milk and foam.
Okay.
Then you're going to have a cappuccino, which is going to be that same amount of espresso with, you know, a certain amount of milk, a little bit more milk, and then it's half milk, half foam is what a cappuccino is. I want to say it's like 6 ounces. Then you go to a latte, which is going to be more milk and a little bit of foam. So that's the true progression. And it all goes back to, like, I don't know if coffee, I don't actually know the origins of coffee. You know, Turkish are known for their coffee. They've got a method, but, you know, the Italians took a lot of ownership in coffee. And that's actually where, Schultz from Starbucks went and got his passion for coffee. And so part of why Starbucks does the French roast and the dark roast coffee is because that's how the Italians like their coffee. They like that dark roast coffee. And so, you know, I mean, everybody draws inspiration and influence from different places. And for me, I don't like that taste.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm on that journey of exploring food, coffee now. I tried, I was very similar to you with the alcohol, like for beer and stuff. I was 32 by the time I ever tasted alcohol, you know, even had a sip of it. And I was like, I see the commercials. I've seen people crack one open and just sit there and watch a football game and enjoy a beer. And I bought a 6-pack. I forget what I bought, a 6-pack of like Bud Light or something.
And, oh, wow, you went all in, huh?
Well, I figured that I would take one and try to drink it and get used to it. I knew I'd have to get used to the taste. I never finished a complete beer. I couldn't do it. The only beer that I ever have, like once a year, is that like Angry Orchard's, you know, it's apple cider basically.
The apple one?
Yeah, I can force myself to drink that.
Are the ciders, are they beer? Are they considered beer? I think cider is cider.
Well, is the Angry Orchard, is that a cider or a beer?
I don't know. And the reason I ask that is because there are some ciders that I've had that I can drink. I don't love them. I wouldn't say I like them, but to fit in socially, if I have to, I can order a cider so that I'm holding the right. I used to get made fun of a lot when we'd go out for drinks after work. I go out with the guys, right? I'm going out with the guys for drinks after work. Everybody's ordering beer, and I'm getting like a Cosmopolitan, or I'm getting like a little girly drink that comes with a little freaking umbrella in it and stuff. And
it tastes good.
Brutal. I'm like, but it's good. It tastes good.
I don't understand why people drink stuff that doesn't taste good. I like the. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm spending all this money. I want it to taste nice and sweet and whatever. So, but I don't know. They would say the same thing about their brews as you would probably about the coffee if you gave it time. And
oh yeah, no, people that like beer, yeah, they like. I mean, they like beer. So I wish I liked beer because right now, you know, we're living in really the golden age of beer right now, but I do not like beer.
It sounds like you gave it much more of a go than I even did.
I tried. I tried.
Didn't try that hard. So let's jump to pizza, because I think we both can appreciate pizza. So is it true, there's a rumor out there that at one point you were a pizzeria man almost?
Yeah. Yeah. So, some people call it like a, midlife crisis. You go out and buy a Corvette,
You went off to pizza school, right?
to pizza school. So that, yeah, that came about, um, that came about for a few different reasons, I think. Um, for one thing, growing up, I like pizza, right? I mean, I like pizza. Um, and I think growing up, I was also particular about my pizza and what I liked. So, I mean, there were certain pizzas that I did not like, right? Whereas most kids are like, yeah, it's pizza. Give me pizza. What's the little Caesar $5 pizza? I mean, some people will eat that shit. I cannot eat that. That's terrible. Um, so I noticed a difference in pizzas growing up. I knew what I liked. I knew what I didn't like. So I noticed a difference in quality of pizza, and it always goes back to the ingredients and the way that it's made, and blah blah blah. So that was one aspect. Another thing was the experience that you have in a dining experience. So, oftentimes I go to a restaurant. If I've never been there before, I like to go to a restaurant and again, I took this quiz. I'm a know-it-all. According to the quiz, I find out I'm a know-it-all, right? So when I go to restaurants, in my mind, I'm a critiquer. I'm what I'm talking about, one of those people that goes and critiques the restaurant.
Food critic.
Food critic, yeah. So when I go try something new, I'm taking in the whole experience from the time I get greeted at the door, if I get greeted at the door, to the time I'm leaving. How was the food, but how was the experience? So so I began also to realize and notice a difference in different dining experiences. And what I found was that most places just suck. Yeah. Most places, they don't give you a positive experience. It's you go there because, man, you're hungry, and the place down the street, it isn't any better. The service isn't any better. The food's not any better. So you go because what else are you gonna do? So so I began to realize and think to myself, I could do better. I could do this better than not just this one place, but I could do this better than the majority of places. Most places I go give me a crappy experience with mediocre food. I know that I could provide better food and an exceptional experience for customers, and why not? So that was part two of it. That's how I got into building homes, actually. So I was working with my father doing concrete work, and he started taking on jobs with a big national builder that came into town at the time it's called Syntex Homes. And so Syntex Homes came in and they built hundreds of homes in our community where we were working. And we worked with a number of different superintendents through the years. And I would observe these superintendents, and I would observe how they work, and I would observe whether or not they were any good at their job. And it was noticeable as these different guys would cycle through, it was noticeable which ones knew what they were doing and which ones were idiots.
Yeah.
Most of the guys honestly didn't do a fantastic job, and it was noticeable. from the perspective of the trade, you know, the trade contractor. So, but they got paid really good money. I was making not so good money.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, I know I can do what they do. Yeah. And I know I can do what they do better than they do it. I may not know everything they know. Like I knew concrete. Yeah. I don't know a damn thing about framing. I don't know anything about plumbing. I don't know anything about any of the other trades. I know concrete. But I figured I knew that I could learn what I needed to learn about all the other stuff, but that I could run the job site better than those guys. I knew it. I saw enough of them to know or to feel confident that I could do it. I don't know if it's just arrogance. I don't know. But that's how I got into home building was that belief that I could do it. Not that I knew what I needed, not that I knew everything, because I didn't know anything. I knew that I didn't know anything, but I also knew that I could learn it and that I could do it. So that's how I got into home building. And so I did that for a number of years. And so going back to the pizza thing, when in 2008, 9, 10, the economy crashed, the housing crashed, I ended up leaving the company that I was with, and so I decided that I was going to go learn pizza. So that's how I got to pizza.
How did you find out about that school, or like how long did you kind of look into it? Was it kind of the seat of your pants? You just saw something, or?
Yeah. So you know, fortunately, the internet by that point had come a long ways. You know, it was getting faster. When the internet first came out, it was dial-up. It was slow. It was tedious. But by 2010, the internet had come a long ways. I had developed an interest in a couple of things. I had developed, obviously, an interest in pizza because I loved pizza. I figured I could run a pizza restaurant better than all the pizza restaurants that I was going to, right? Based on my dining experience with them. I'd never ran a restaurant, never been in a restaurant, had no actual experience in that industry, but I figured I could do it. And I had proven myself successful in the construction industry where I knew nothing. Like I said, I knew nothing about these other things. I was able to learn it. So for me, the fact that I was able to learn what I needed to learn to be successful in that gave me the confidence that I could go into a different industry, learn what I needed to learn, and be successful there. I figured it'd be simpler even. I don't know. So that was part of that. And then I had become interested in marketing. So the other thing that I saw was that none of these local businesses were marketing themselves online. Now, keep in mind, this is 10 years ago. We're in 2020. So in 2010, people were not marketing their businesses on Google. They were not marketing their businesses on Facebook. There was no Instagram, right? Facebook was relatively new and young at the time. Facebook advertising was new and young at the time. So I had developed an interest in marketing and saw, okay, I can couple marketing online with, you know, an actual physical business, and it's going to give me a competitive edge over the competition, right? So I'm doing research, you know, Google, I love Google, right? Doing research, and I thought, okay, I know nothing of running a business, of running a pizza business. I don't even know how to make pizza. Yeah. So maybe there's such a thing as pizza school. I knew there was culinary school, but maybe there's specifically pizza school. Little Google search, right? And lo and behold, I find the International School of Pizza, who was started and is ran by Tony Gimignani. Now, Tony Gimignani was at the time a 9-time world champion pizzaioli. Okay, what does that mean? So, this guy is an American, right? He's American from the Bay Area, about the same age as me. We were within a year of each other's age. He grew up, though, not grew up, but he started working at a pizza place. Him and his brother started a pizza place, and he was passionate about pizza. He started tossing the dough.
Yeah.
See where they toss dough and do tricks, and so he started doing that, right? But pizza is a serious business in Italy. So back in Italy, where pizza originates from, it's very serious. As a matter of fact, it's so serious that there are laws and rules around pizza and how you make your pizza. So to be legitimate, to have a legitimate Neapolitan style margarita pizza, you have to use specific ingredients. You have to cook it in a specific type oven. So I mean, they're serious about this shit over there. So there's competitions. There's competitions for this. So Tony was the first, only at the time. I don't know if it's changed now, but at the time, the only American and the first American that to go to the World Championship of Pizza and win the competition. So when he did it the first time, it was a big thing. But he did it 9 times. So here's a guy who is a world expert in pizza.
Yeah.
He's got this school. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I sign up. I'm gonna go learn from the best at how to make pizza. And so I mean, he phenomenal. He to this day he owns numerous pizza restaurants. There's Pizza Rock, which is in Sacramento. It's pretty cool. Have you ever been there? Vegas? Have you been? He's got one in Vegas. You've been to one in Vegas? Never been to any Pizza Rock? Gotta go to Pizza Rock. It's what's cool about Pizza Rock. There's a lot of things cool about Pizza Rock, but one thing that's cool about Pizza Rock is when you go into the facility, they've got a giant transformer. I say transformer type. So Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
He's a truck, right? Big truck. Okay, so they've got a big ass truck coming out the wall over the bar. Okay. I mean, it's not a transformer, but that's what I always think of. I always think, hey, there's Optimus Prime. So
it's just a truck.
It's just a truck, yeah. It's just a truck. It's not a transformer, but in my mind, at night it comes alive and it's a transformer.
For marketing, it would be a transformer.
Yeah. So he's got Pizza Rock, and then he's got another place in Little Italy in San Francisco, and then right next to that he's got a coal fire pizza oven, which does to-go pizzas by the slice, right next door to his restaurant there in Little Italy.
I thought you said cold pizza oven, and I thought you were going to blow my mind with this cold brew.
Yeah, cold brew, cold pizza. Yeah, no. But yeah, so pizza's fascinating as well because you don't think about it. You think pizza is pizza. But it's not. It's not. There's different. There's so much to pizza. Yeah. From the ovens that you cook in. So I went to pizza school and learned how to make pizza in 5 different type of pizza ovens. I bet you didn't even know that there were 5 different types, literal kinds of pizza ovens, right? No, there's different kinds of pizza ovens even. So anyway,
no, I really, pizza's my favorite. So I was excited about that adventure. When you were going on it, it was always interesting. So, and that's when the food truck pizza type of thing was happening, and I really
Yes.
enjoyed that experience too. So
Yeah.
so let's go back a little bit. I'm excited to talk to you because I realize that there's things that I don't know about you. I've never, we talk a lot about what's going on now and stuff, but I definitely want to ask you a little bit about your origin story. If not, you were around this earth 5 years before I was, and then we've talked about this before, but the gap of our realities were a lot different. Growing up in the same household, but kind of at different times and different times in our lives. So I want to ask you about your earliest years of being, where were you born even? I don't even know that.
I was born in Porterville.
Was it? Okay. Because did parents live in Porterville and then move to, wasn't I conceived in that small little outskirt town?
You were, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
it was a drunken night. I remember it was very, no, I have no clue, but yeah, you were conceived in Plainview.
okay. So they lived in Porterville, and then at one point they moved to Plainview?
No, so both our parents were from Terabella.
Yeah.
And when I was born in Porterville, because that's where the hospital was.
Gotcha.
It was either that or the barn in Terabella. So I was born in an actual hospital, but when I was taken from the hospital to the home, it was in Terabella. It was a little brick adobe home. I don't know what road it's on. I've been by there. Little white brick adobe style house. Kind of pretty. I mean, it's in kind of a pretty little spots on a bit of a downslope of a hill. There's some orchards across the street, and behind, as I recall, behind it was just field, but big trees and green grass, the White House, and it was a second home on a property.
Yeah.
So I believe the people's names were the Howards, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. There was a main house that had a pool. I don't remember ever going to the pool, but there was a main house, I think, with a pool, and then we lived in the second house or I did. You never lived there, but we lived in the second house there on the property.
So you lived there until you were about 4 or 5?
Not that old. Probably 3 or 4, and then we moved to Plainview. I don't recall how long we were in Plainview, but the thing I remember about Plainview was learning how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
We did have a pool in Plainview. How the house in Plainview is no longer there. Have you been by?
No, I wouldn't have been able to find it. I know not even what street it's on, but there's only one main street in Plainview, so.
Yeah. No, it's right there. Yeah. No, you would have. Well, maybe you don't remember, but the house was probably the biggest house in town, and it's the only house probably that had it was a big pool.
Oh, wow.
Big tree in the front, big pine tree. And what I remember about that was the spaceship. There was a night that the aliens came down to Earth, and you could see it like fire in the sky. And I guess it was some sort of satellite or something that came down. It was not really aliens, but I do remember that, and learning how to ride a bike. So we weren't there real long.
Because when I was born, it was at the house that I remember the only house, the 2-story house, where we were there for about 7 years. And that's where all my young childhood memories are from there. I never realized, talking to Dad a couple of weeks ago, I didn't realize that he started the concrete company so late, you know, as he was older. I guess I just assumed that he had always been doing that. So do you remember him working or like starting that type of work? Do you remember that transition of employment?
I don't specifically remember, but you're right. Yeah, when we lived in Terabella, he worked at TBID, and then started doing concrete.
Yeah.
It was at that same time. He was at TBID. I remember the uniform. I remember the uniform that he used to wear.
Yeah.
I remember that. So, I mean, I remember, but I don't remember it as an event.
Yeah.
It's not anything like, I do not remember him coming home and being like, okay, well, that was my last day at TBID. I don't remember that. But I mean, I do remember, the uniform, and then I remember early on, like, going and doing concrete jobs. Like, I went and did, not that I was doing anything, but I went to the jobs and, you know, was there and stuff too. So.
Do you remember your household becoming Christian? I guess Mom was kind of raised in the church, but it's, to my understanding, Dad kind of became a Christian at some point. Do you know anything about that, or do you remember that? Like, had you gone to church as like from birth, or was there a time where you started going to church?
Okay, there's a lot of questions there in that question. But yes, I was born on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what day I was born on, but I mean, I was born on, you know, one day, and I was in church that next Sunday. So, yeah, I mean, I was practically born in the pew. Okay. So, yeah, mom took me to church from the beginning, and many, you know, it's shocking to me how many memories I have of as a young child, because all of this happened, what I'm about to tell you, all of this was, well, I'm not going to tell you that much, but all of these memories that I have were before I was 5 years old.
Well,
I have a ton of memories in the church before I was 5 years old.
I was going to say, I thought it was weird that you could describe or remember the house and your, you know, kind of like your recollection of it being so young.
Oh, yeah. I don't know why. I can remember crawling out of my crib for what in my perception was the first time. So, like, hey, dude, check that out. I just crawled out of the crib. I don't know if that's why I remember it. And I don't know whether it was the first time, but I can remember crawling out of the crib. You know, I can remember us getting a dog. That dog having puppies. I can remember a cat. And just, I mean, I remember my friends from the church. I remember singing at the church. I remember the guy that played the harmonica. I mean, I don't talk to these people, and many of them now are dead. But I mean, the people that were in my life as a child in those first 5 years were in my life to some degree for their entire lives from that point on till they died. You know.
That was the Terabella Nazarene Church?
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember how long did you guys go there?
Well, like I said, it was like the first 5 years, because then we moved, and I don't know at what point we started going to the Porterville Nazarene Church. If we were in Plainview or if we had moved to Porterville, that I don't remember. But I do know that it was my kindergarten year that we started going to Porterville, because I remember, okay, now I'm in school, and I remember going to the new church, and now I'm meeting Ryan Hangy, I'm meeting Christy Hansen, I'm meeting Heather Michelson, Shelly Evans. I'm meeting all these people that became lifelong friends that I grew up with. I mean, I don't talk to them anymore, but I mean, these are the people that I grew up with. So yeah, it was beginning of school years, and we did a thing called caravans, which if you were Baptist, you had another thing which is more popular. I don't remember what that's called.
The Awanas?
The Nazarene, the Awanas, yeah. But in the Nazarene church, we did caravans. It was like the Christian version of like the Boy Scouts, right? So that was cool. Did that. Your question was about, do I remember the transition? Do I remember our father not being a Christian and becoming a Christian? And I do. He actually, I wouldn't say that he was raised Jehovah's Witness, but he himself had studied with Jehovah's Witnesses, and but he was not a Jehovah's Witness, yet he very much, I think, had Jehovah's Witness beliefs, if that makes sense. So he was not a Christian in the early years, but he had a lot of Jehovah's Witness beliefs. So you have to ask him about that.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, I do remember that we used to do a thing. We used to have a thing called revival. Churches don't do this anymore. Churches haven't had revival in a long time. But we used to have revivals. Really interesting about them, they were planned. They were on the calendar. But so there was a guy named Chuck or Charles Higgins, and he was a regular that came to the church, and I think our dad was quote unquote saved under Chuck Higgins. So I remember that. I do remember that. That was an event. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Huh. So would you say that you were super involved in church stuff growing up? What was that? Was it something you enjoyed as a young boy?
Absolutely. I was, yeah, I think outside of school, obviously I went to school every day. So outside of school, I think church was probably the biggest thing in my life growing up. Socially, it was at least a two time a week event. We would go, three times really, but we would go twice on Sunday, once in the morning, once at night, and then we'd go again on Wednesday nights. So three times a week I was at church.
Do any churches do the 2 times on a Sunday anymore?
Well, at Bayside they do about 6 different Sunday services, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about most churches these days. So I don't really know. It doesn't seem like it's the norm, though. No.
Just seemed very normal to me growing up as well. That was, we have Wednesday night, maybe Friday youth or junior high something, and Sunday morning, Sunday night, and then maybe like a group during the week also. It was a very busy schedule for church. But growing up and now, I don't know of churches who do like a Sunday morning, Sunday night anymore. So anyways.
Yeah.
But so you're, for people who don't know you, so, some of this I do know and stuff, but how involved or what were some of the things that you were into at the church?
So again, going back to very early on, I remember music. So I think music was very integral part of my life in the church as it related to church. So the church life and music were hand in hand together, from, just singing in the kids' choirs and different things. At the Porterville church, we would do pretty good sized productions of musical stuff, and just being a part of those. Um, I didn't necessarily like the acting aspect of it, but the singing part of it I always enjoyed. Um, in conjunction with that, yet separately, our neighbor across the street from where we lived there in Porterville, I remember, was taking piano lessons, and I went there one day to see, hey, Wendy, can you come play? And her mom's like, well, Wendy's doing piano lessons right now. I'm like, really? Well, piano? What's that? Let me see. And so I don't know how I got this worked out, but I must have gone home and been like, hey, Mom, Dad, Wendy's doing piano lessons. I want to do piano. Can I, get me piano lessons. So we got piano lessons. I got piano lessons from the same lady across the street, who, interestingly enough, was also associated with the Church of the Nazarene, but not in Porterville, in a different one. She was part of the Tyree family.
Yeah.
Remember the Tyrees? Yeah. So
I just got a picture of Tony Tyree from my mom this last week.
Okay.
Remember that?
So anyway, so I started taking piano lessons. So, as I got better, the church would have me play the piano, and they used to. They don't do this anymore so much in churches either that I've been to, but they used to, in church, take an offering where you would, they had pews, and they would have ushers who would pass a plate literally down the aisle. A lot of churches don't do that anymore. So for those that are not familiar with this, this is how it used to be done.
Yeah.
And during that time, the church would often have some form of, I hate to call it entertainment, but they would have some form of entertainment,
because it could take a long time.
Yeah, they needed something to fill the time for the guys to get the money. So during this time, those were the times that I would go and I would play the piano, and I would sing. I would do a song or two during the offering time. So so that was a lot of my involvement in the early years, was in the kids choir, and singing, for the offering time. One time we went, I think this was probably junior high, part of a choir that went to the worldwide convention of the Church of the Nazarene. It was held in Anaheim that year, and they had our little choir go and perform. And I remember this because it was huge. It was the biggest audience that I had ever been able to perform in front of. And so I was excited about it. And it probably wasn't that big. I mean, it probably wasn't more than maybe 5,000 people. I don't think it was 10,000 people. So it wasn't that big, but it was the biggest group of people that I had ever had the opportunity to perform in front of. And so it's a memory that stuck, that I remember going and performing that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that you really enjoyed the church stuff as a kid. I had a ton of fun growing up in the church. Some of my best memories as a kid. Now, would you say, I like to ask everybody, was there a time, kind of being raised in the church, was there a time that you remember actually making that choice to become a Christian? Was it something you just identified with all the time? Or, was it a moment that something clicked? What is that in your life?
Yeah, for me, it was very, very early on. I was in the church in Terabella. Yeah. So I had to have been probably 3 or 4 years old And I do specifically remember going down to the altar,
Yeah.
and praying the little prayer that they would have you pray. So yeah, I remember that.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you just kind of stuck with? I know Missy kind of said that the teaching that she had heard was that you could never get that taken away, and so she never came back to that again. Did you?
Yeah, that's because she grew up under the false teachings of Calvinism.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a good Wesleyan home. So I knew that you were able to backslide and lose your salvation and still end up in the flames of hell. So I was able to recommit my life to Christ many times through the years.
Do you feel like you were kind of a good Christian kid, or was it, what kind of kid were you? Or was there a time where there was a drastic, like a rebellious time, or were you kind of always a Christian throughout?
I think I was a good kid. As a child, I was a good kid. I did what I was supposed to do. I did what I was told. I did what was expected of me. Not, maybe not a perfect kid by any means, but I was more of a good kid than a troublesome kid for sure.
Sounds good. What about see, I remember being not a Christian, a very distinct 4 years of pretty much, because of the parents divorcing, my whole reality of church and God, I felt like it was just like everybody was hypocrites in the church. Like our parents were kind of leaders in the church, and I was not aware that we weren't the happiest family in the whole world. And so I remember that night when coming home from Wednesday night church, I think it was Wednesday night, and coming home to the, hey, we're getting a divorce speech, and that just radically changing my life. And, at the time it felt like a negative way. What was that time period for you? I went another 4 years of just kind of outright, I was not a Christian. I would spit in people's faces that would tell me about Christ. What was your experience through that time? I was so, self-focused that I don't know. Did you ever struggle with Christianity at the time? Or did you keep on going normally?
Sure. So, other than other than being girl crazy, I mean, I was just girl crazy in high school. But all through my growing up years and into high school, I think even especially in high school, and our parents split up in high school at some point. I don't remember.
You were 17.
When it was. I was 17. Okay, so that was probably my senior year. Which was a challenging year. That was a challenging time for me. But before I get to that, the early part of high school, I would say that I was probably an outgoing Christian. I was a blatant Christian. I was an in-your-face Christian. I was involved in the church, in the youth group, very active in the youth group, part of the leadership in the youth group. Even in the high school, we had a quote-unquote Christian club that I was on, that I was on the council for. So, in high school, I was very active and very overtly Christian. You talk about hypocrisy, though. I probably was quite hypocritical. I was, a terrible example of what I imagine Christ was like. So, to anybody that happens to watch this and have known me in high school and not known me today, let me just say I'm sorry. I don't know what I did to you or what I said, but I'm sure that it wasn't nice. I think I was probably quite a bit of an asshole through my high school years, in the name of Christ. Just I don't like that particular time of my life. Looking back, I'm not particularly proud of who I was. As a matter of fact, I remember, and this is weird. Okay, I just show you how weird I am as a person. I don't know anybody else. Not to say that there is anybody else that has done this. I'm sure there is, but I don't know anybody else that's done this. In high school, I remember wanting to take a self-reflection and self-evaluation, and I reached a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm not happy with who I am. I am not acting as the person that I want to be. Does that make sense? In my mind, I have a visualization of the type of person that I want to be, and my actions are not reflecting that. And so I remember going around to not just friends, but also people that didn't necessarily like me, people that I was not nice to, which was a long list of people, and asking them, tell me about me. What do you like about me? Is there anything good about me? Any positives? And what are some of the negatives? What are some things that Jason needs to work on? And I remember just doing this kind of like poll with just a wide spectrum of people to get feedback. and it confirmed what I already knew, which was, dude, you're an asshole. So yeah, interesting.
That is kind of weird.
It's weird, right? Yeah, I don't know anybody that does that.
At that age.
Yeah, at that age, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But so kind of getting into my senior year and to that time where our parents split up, another thing that happened was our grandfather passed away. Also in that time period, do you remember that?
Year before.
It was the year before. Yeah, it was the year before. So that was my junior year that our grandfather passed away. I don't know if that had any impact on you. And I don't want to say that it necessarily had a huge impact on me, but I mean, he was my grandpa. So it was a saddening time. It was tough. And then going into that summer, that was a big summer for me. I traveled to Florida that summer, spent a couple weeks over in Florida, and coming back for my senior year, it was a rough year. We had, I don't remember the time. I really don't remember what all happened as it relates to our parents. And I don't remember the impact necessarily that had on me. I'm sure it had a negative impact. I'm sure it was hard to process and to deal with. I always had somewhat of a contentious relationship with our mom. And so our parents splitting up wasn't, the idea of that wasn't necessarily a negative to me. I kind of was, I don't want to say happy, but I was kind of happy about it in a sense, because we were going to live with our dad and not, we were going to have to spend time with mom. And I had issues. I mean, I'd taken some time away from the family and gone and stayed with, some other family. At one point our dad even kind of floated the idea of me going to live with our grandparents. So you know, my relationship with our mother growing up was contentious enough that it was an issue ongoing. That was a big issue. But nonetheless, I'm sure that them splitting up was a big deal. So we had, you know, grandfather passing away, going on, what was going on in our family. And then I got myself into trouble my senior year. Probably in part because maybe I was acting out because of this other stuff. It wasn't necessarily conscious that I did it, but I mentioned that growing up I was a good kid. Well, my senior year of high school, not a good kid, not a good kid. I was more like you, getting in fights. I remember this. I remember this one time. This guy, quite a bit bigger than me. I threw a soda in his face. Next thing I know, I'm in a headlock. So, I mean, I remember getting the shit beat out of me, getting kicked in the face, getting jumped. I mean, I found my way into a lot of trouble that senior year, to the point where I was never a great student. I coasted by in terms of school. I never, ever applied myself scholastically in school. So I was just an average student. But my senior year, I struggled to graduate, like barely got through D's. I mean, just barely slid across that stage to graduate. There was a lot going on that year.
Do you know anybody else that had parents that got divorced at that time? Was it kind of a weird?
Not in the church.
Yeah.
I mean, there were school kids, and with the other school kids, for me, it was never a deal. Like I didn't care. I don't remember ever thinking about somebody else's family situation and thinking negatively of somebody because they came from a divorced family. So it was never that, like the perception of a person coming from a divorced family was never a negative for me. But no, my circle of friends, for the most part, I mean, I know one or two of the guys that I hung out with at school, not necessarily from Christian families, their parents were divorced, but most of my friends, and definitely all my church friends, pretty much their parents were all together.
Yeah, I just remember it kind of being a weird thing still at that time. Like, oh, your parents are divorced? Like now it's kind of it's more assumed that that's normal. Did you feel any like shame or anything in the church? I don't know, actually. I haven't talked to the parents, but it was kind of my understanding that it was kind of hard for them. It seemed like they both wanted to still go there, but different service. I don't know. Was that a big deal for you at church, or kind of wasn't that big of a deal?
Not with our parents getting divorced, no. Now, years later, obviously, I got married and I got divorced. And so I can relate to that at that point, but as a kid with our parents getting divorced, I honestly, there was no negativity to it.
Yeah.
At least that I can recall.
Yeah.
It was, for me, it felt like a positive. Like yeah, this is a good thing. This is a step in the right direction. All right.
It's fascinating that we had such a different experience out of that. But so getting graduated, what was your vision at that time? What was your goals at that time? What were you wanting to get into ministry? Were you wanting, what was Jason Rodriguez thinking about or dreaming about at that point?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was just watching a thing yesterday that talks about going back and thinking back to when you're 14. And I tried to do this and I could not remember at 14 what I wanted to be. Do you know? Do you have any recollection at 14
No,
where you were?
nothing specifically. I remember as a kid wanting to be a teacher, but you know, I don't know how specific that was.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. I'll have to show you this. I'll have to show you this other thing. But yeah, at 14, I don't remember wanting to be anything necessarily. However, through my high school years, like I said, I was active in the youth group and in part of the leadership team there, part of that Christian club and part of the leadership team there. Even in the school, I was in class council. I was on school student body, council. So there was, and I'll tell you something else. So, but there was always something in me that knew I liked organizing stuff. I liked putting stuff together and making stuff happen, making stuff happen, right? So I liked being involved in putting the school assemblies together and just the different things like that. So I used to dream. I can specifically remember dreaming about, like, daydreaming, not sleep dreaming, but like daydreaming about creating these conferences where people would come and we would do testimonies and sing and a church, church service or whatever, but they would be like conferences, like big, thousands of people coming. I would dream this stuff up in my head. I would plan this stuff up in my head. Nicola, I don't know, some of this I don't know how I did. I, as a child, liked this guy by the name of Steve Green. He was a singer, right? I like this guy so much, I was somehow able to convince the church to bring Steve Green to the church. Okay, as a child, I did this. So, and I don't know. I mean, I don't want to take responsibility for that again, but it was my idea. It was my idea. I dreamed of these things. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yes, I dreamed of doing big things, like big productions, big conferences and things like that.
You said there was something else, and you said that. Do you remember what the something else was?
Not a clue, no.
So at that same time, kind of your high school, before we move on there, do you remember what were some of your, you took my question right there, but what were some of your influences at that point? And I was going to bring up, I remember you introducing me to Christian, I was going to say Christian music, but the 5 Christian artists that was at the time. Steve Green, Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, Sandy Patty, Carmen, if you want to get a little crazy there. But I remember that kind of coming from you. But was it a lot of it musically? Was your youth pastor a big influence? I know you mentioned the other day about getting into biographies. Did that happen in high school? What was that? Where did you go in that kind of a realm?
So who influenced me?
Yeah.
All right. I think there were, in my junior high, high school years, there were 2 major influences. Both of them were, I would say, my youth pastors. In junior high, you know this guy, Doug Studi.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was the youth pastor during junior high. So he influenced me at that time. But then in high school, my youth pastor was a guy by the name of Jerry Moen. And he definitely had a huge influence on me as well. One of the big takeaways that I remember to this day that I got from him was, at some point he sat me down and was like, okay, because again, I was not scholastically engaged in high school at all. Literature, I mean, I didn't read anything. I had no interest in reading a book about anything, no interest in fiction, nothing. So he sat me down and was like, Jason, as you prepare to go to college, one of the things I want you to realize is that when you get in college, you're going to have to read. There are going to be textbooks this thick that you're going to read. So you need to start now practicing and getting into reading so that you are ready and prepared for when you go to college. So I took that to heart, and then of course other things through our lives build on some of those foundations, right? And you build that foundation and it gets greater and bigger. And so, other things in the future, I became connected with, the worldwide group. And one of the core principles there is to read books, right? And they've got a whole book list and develop yourself and get yourself better through audio and through reading. And so anyway, so that was a secondary thing that kind of went on top of what I learned as a foundation from Jerry. So my life up to this point has been very much influenced by the books that I've read and the things that I've learned and the influences I've had through books. But all of that was possible because of that conversation that I had with Jerry. So that was a huge influence in my life because of what it led to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you kind of you're graduating high school. What happens at that point?
What happens at that point? Like I said, my senior year was pretty rough. And
had you had any jobs at all, like or serious jobs, or you didn't work through your high school years?
No, I worked typically in the summers with our father.
Yeah.
Let me get out of the house away from our mother. So, but no, I'd never worked like at McDonald's or anything like that. So the question of, well, what do I want to be when I grow up was something that I really never was able to answer through high school. I did not leave high school with a clear plan. Nobody in our family had really gone to college, so college wasn't necessarily an expectation. Nobody expected me to go to school.
Okay.
I don't know that anybody expected anything of me. So it was, I was like a rudderless ship coming out of high school.
That's what it sounds like.
No, I really had no idea what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be.
But you went on to go to like 10 different colleges, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, you do a lot of things when you don't know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I went.
It's very weird. I'm just gonna say that at this part of your life, I have no idea because
Sure.
I'm gone or whatever. Like I really don't know what you're gonna say right now. My vague memory is that you were at a different college every time that I heard about you.
Okay, so so our dad got, this is part of the story. So our dad got remarried to Diane, not remarried to Diane, but he got remarried. He got married again. He married Diane.
Yeah.
And going back to people of influence, huge she was a huge influence on me. She came into my life, and I think we all have certain perceptions of how things ought to be, right?
Yeah.
And I Diane came in and fulfilled for me the role of a mother. She was never in my mind really stepmom. I had no problem accepting Diane into my life. I gave her a chance, got to know her. Our dad had a quite young girlfriend before her, who honestly I didn't pay any attention to. Her name was Josie. I paid no attention to her. Like she did a little plaything. She's gonna come, she's gonna go. I paid no attention to her. But I met Diane on their first date. We actually went to the same spot. They were on a date. I don't think I was on a date. I was with a girl, but I went on a date. So we ended up at the same spot. Awkward. So I met Diane on their first date and liked her right away, immediately. Just liked her, right? She was cool. So she came into my life and introduced me to coffee. She started cooking. She cooked. I won't get into all that, but I did not grow up in a house with a variety of home cooked meals. Okay, it was like I grew up on bean and cheese burritos. I asked my dad not too long ago, recently, what was the deal? Did our mom not know how to cook? Was she just a bad cook? Because I can remember things that she would make. I didn't like any of it. So I don't know if I was just picky or if she was just a bad cook. I don't know. So, but Diane came in and life started to blossom. Like things just started to change. And Diane taught me things. She had very clear structure, very strong opinions, very clear ideas on right and wrong, how you ought as a young man. This is how you conduct yourself. This is how you treat a woman. This is what you do. This is what's expected. So she was a huge influence on me. Even music. I remember, growing up, there was a little bit of music allowed in the house, Christian music. But you mentioned people like Amy Grant. Okay, look back on Amy Grant's music, and you will find almost nothing of great controversy. There's nothing evil or terribly bad about Amy Grant, other than a few records which were just bad. But there reached a point where my mom was like, "Oh, you can't listen to Amy Grant. No, that's devil music."
He did come out with a secular CD at one point. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, it was bad. So music. I mean, music was a big part of my life, but then it wasn't, because it was so limited. It was so confined. I mean, if it wasn't the Gaithers and just. Not that that's not good music, but there's so much more. And Diane comes in and she brings in all this other music. And I can just remember, I remember these not bookcases, but this entertainment center that she brought into the house and all this furniture. I mean, my God, our house went from empty to being like a museum of stuff, Yeah. And she had all these CDs and so I would sit there and I would just play all this music and I was exposed now to all this stuff that I had never experienced in my life. Movies. She liked movies. I'd never gone to a movie. until I was probably 18 years old. Never been to a movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, life changed there. That was she was a big influence.
What, you know, kind of on that topic, we can get to after high school in a second, but you don't have to dive into whatever you want to share. But what at that point, what was your relationship with your father? Was he did he instruct you? Did he kind of inspire you for something? I mean, you were kind of without direction, but were you close to you said you weren't close to your mom, but what was the relationship with your dad?
Yeah, we like I said, I would work summers with him. Definitely as a child growing up, I feel like I was always there at work with him. Obviously, at school I was at school, but it felt like I was with him a lot. When I got out of high school and into college, I actually went to work for him. Like I took a job, went to work there with him. And so, we were together, we were together every day. And when you don't know any different, you don't know what you don't know. So my relationship with my father was my relationship with my father. It is what it is. It was what it was. I didn't have anything different to compare to or to know that anybody else's relationship was any different than mine with him. So there was nothing in my mind. There was nothing wrong with our relationship. It literally just is. It just was what it was. It was a good relationship.
Yeah.
But I didn't know any different, if that makes sense. So I don't remember necessarily a lot of instruction or guidance coming from him. He taught me things like how to drive and the things that I learned. To be honest with you, I feel like I did a lot of learning by being around him and his dad and our Uncle Hector. Being in proximity with our father as he was talking to other men is probably where I learned the most. I learned a lot of things by just eavesdropping on other people's conversations, not necessarily conversations that he was having with me to try to impart knowledge to me. And so interestingly enough, I too have taken on that strategy with my own children. Now I've tried both. I've tried to directly talk to my kids and I get the eye roll. I get like, oh God. So that doesn't work. maybe that's what I did for him. And so he just like throws his hands up and like, yeah, forget it. I don't know. But I've tried to directly talk to my kids about stuff and they just blow me out. They don't want to listen. So I try now to include them in conversations that I'm having or that other adults are having, where I feel like, okay, they're going to be able to learn something and gain something from this conversation. I can teach without directly talking to them. So I don't know if that was a strategy that he had on purpose or what. But one thing, I don't know at what point exactly, but you and I both know Ryan Ruckman.
Yeah.
Ryan, gosh, I don't honestly, I don't remember how I met Ryan. I really don't. I was, how did we meet? I mean, I remember the circle of friends that I had, but I don't remember what came first and how I got into that particular group. But
Your age? How old was he? Your age?
Ryan, no, his brother Jeff is my age, but Ryan's older. Ryan's more like Mike and Steve's age.
Okay.
So so I don't remember exactly how I connected with him, but one of the things that I got from my time with Ryan was reading the Bible. Okay, I had not necessarily been an avid reader of the Bible before that. And so I started reading the Bible more, and I really liked the Proverbs. So I would read the book of Proverbs quite a bit. And one of the things that I learned from reading Proverbs was there's a lot of talk in Proverbs about wisdom and finding wisdom, right? And so I took that into my life and said, you know what? I'm just a young kid who doesn't know anything. I'm going to seek out older, wiser mentors for my life. So at a young age, I mean, relatively young, not a kid, but coming out of high school, I began to seek out mentors. I began to seek out people that were ahead of me in life and that had the things that I wanted or had experienced certain things that I wanted to glean from. And so to know me in my early adult life, you would have tripped out because most people my age were only hanging around other people their age and were going to the bars and things like that. My closest friends in my early 20s were probably 60, 70-year-old men with these life experiences that I just found fascinating.
Like who? Who's one?
I'm having a Joe Biden moment.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name? They were I'm not gonna remember right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. I've got the pictures of their faces in my minds here, but
Wait, from church or?
They were guys from church, retired pastors, retired ministers. Ralph Slayton was one of them. And then there's another guy too. But Ralph Slayton, and I don't know, how when you're young you think old people, you think people older than you're old. But Ralph was old. I mean, when you're 20 you think people 40-year-old, right? Ralph wasn't 40. Ralph was old. Had to at least been in his 60s, mid 60s, late 60s, maybe 70. I mean, Ralph was already old when I met him. No offense, Ralph. But I mean, I spent a lot of time with these guys. Not just a little bit. I spent a lot of time. I would go to his house and we'd hang out. Like, we spent time together. And their books. I use these guys for their books. They had just book collections of old books, and I'm fascinated by history and old things. So I like my old friends and their old books. So these guys, these guys were influential in my life at that age. But yes, I did go to different colleges. Straight out of high school, I went to Porterville College on a music scholarship. So that's why I went there, because it was free. I worked, I saved up money, and then while you were off at private school, I decided, hey, that looks fun. So I too went to private university in San Diego for a semester. paid cash for it. So that's all I could afford. I wasn't gonna go into debt to go to school. I didn't like school that much, and I didn't know what I wanted to be or wanted to do. So I wasn't necessarily going to school to go to school. But it was school on the beach in San Diego, and they had a library that I could have access to. I thought for free, but it wasn't. It cost me, $15,000. So that I probably didn't think through real well. But yeah, so I went to school there, and then I did go for a time. I went to Colorado Springs. That was very, very short. I was not suitable. The weather and I did not agree in Colorado Springs. So, but I went to go to Bible college there in Colorado Springs as well.
Okay. Yeah, so I just remember, probably about the end of your high school years is when you would take me to a lot of different Christian events and stuff like that. I know it's got kind of close to Ryan Ruckman and his mom, and then the Georges had their little Saturday play basketball, and they had the youth group out there and stuff. So what I'm interested in is, where did Jason, after he's not having a direction, when did you finally feel like I'm going a certain direction? And what was that direction? What was you were learning all this stuff? Were you at any point at that time wanting to get into ministry full time, or were you just looking at job stuff?
Okay, so I don't specifically remember a point in time where I made the decision necessarily to go into ministry. What I do remember, so I'll tell you this, what I do remember, and this was with Jim Manker at Round Table Pizza. We were talking, and he wasn't my youth. Well, he might have been my youth pastor for my senior year, but Jim and I were talking, and talking about my future, and Jason, what do you like? What do you enjoy? What do you think you want to do? What are you interested in? And so I do remember thinking, I like helping people. I loved putting these events together and doing these, we would do these street ministries and do these outdoor events. I enjoyed the organization of these events, and putting them together. Okay. And then I like the idea of helping people. So at a certain point, I, in my mind, thought, well, maybe what I want to do is get into psychology, become a psychologist, and help people through psychology. And so I think when I went to Point Loma, I think that's maybe the idea that I had. Although I didn't go to study psychology, I actually went to study religion and philosophy. So I don't know. I don't specifically remember a time, but like I said, college was not my thing. Like, just that formal education just was not for me, right? So the Church of the Nazarene had a program to where you could become a licensed minister through what they called a course of study, which was kind of a do it on your own at home, outside of a structured formal education in a college. So I was paired with a local pastor, and I had, a predetermined course of study, all these, books. And so I had grown accustomed to reading. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can read these books and sit down and talk with this pastor and talk through it. And he led me through the course of study. And that was like a 2-year program. It might not have been that long. I don't remember how long it was. But anyhow, so so I did that. And at the same time, in conjunction with doing that, was becoming more involved with the various work in the church. Now, this time in my life was when I got married. I got married in there at 21. So for all you youngsters out there, do not do as I did. Don't do as I do. Do as I say. Don't get married at 21. One of my daughters, 2 of my daughters got married young. So I don't recommend it, but I got married young to a nice girl that I met at the church. And I had at the time I had a list of things, kind of criteria, if you will, that I was looking for in a wife, and going down this list, and I'm like, okay, check, yeah, sure. Looks like a good match to me. Let's do this. And bad choice. Good girl, bad choice. So anyway, so at this time in my life, I'm newly married, starting a family, and becoming very involved in various works and ministries within the local church. I was most drawn towards evangelism, towards outreach, right? Towards going out into the community and bringing people into the church, as opposed to a lot of the work in the church is for the people that are already there, right? So a lot of what happens in church happens for the people that are already there. Yeah. So more of my natural inclination was to go out and expand the church. I became very interested in the idea of planting churches and expanding, growing the church by growing the number of churches, not necessarily taking the one church and making it bigger, but actually going out and making more churches. But I would also do things on a practical level. So here I am, young adult, starting a family in a church, big church. I mean, it was a good sized church, one of the bigger churches in our town. Yeah. And there was nowhere for us to go in that church in terms of, like, we used to have a thing called Sunday school. Again, churches don't do this today, but we had Sunday school where you would go on Sunday morning, you go into a class with other people like you and learn stuff. And there was no class for people like me. There was no class for young couples. So what do? I create a class. Now, I'm not going to be the teacher of that class. So I went out and found a teacher and recruited a teacher and recruited other people from within the church that I didn't even necessarily know. But as I sat there on Sunday mornings and I look around, I'm looking for people that look like me. Yeah, about my age. Oh, it's a guy with a gal, and go talk to him. Hey, do you go to Sunday school? No Sunday school. Okay, I'm gonna start a Sunday school. Come on. And that's the way that my mind works, is don't sit there and complain about stuff. If you got a problem, create a solution. So I didn't necessarily want to start a Sunday school ministry, but I also needed a place. I needed a place to go. I didn't want to go sit in some of these other classes. I wanted to sit and socialize with other people like me. So I created that.
Very nicely done. 100%. I feel like this has to be a part 2, part 3 podcast. There's just this point in your life, I feel like we should come back to this and start from here on another podcast, because if not, we're going to go another 3 hours or so. I think we're at like 2.5. which is good. But yeah, I want to ask you about the evangelism, that street stuff, some of your experiences there. And I don't want to feel rushed. I don't want to hurry it or not have the energy to really be into it. So I definitely, if you're willing, if you're able, would love to have you back on the podcast and keep going.
I might consider that.
You accept? But yeah, definitely. It's just interesting. Like I said, we've talked about this, but everybody has such a different. You have such a different personality, and what you're talking about, putting things together, how your mind works. It's just interesting. It's fascinating. So I want to give it the time that it is due. Or is that how you're supposed to say it? I don't know. Sometimes I get halfway through a saying and I'm not sure if that's what it actually means or not. So, yeah. So we'll see you coming over for. Do you guys know if you're coming over for sure or not yet?
Oh yeah, no, we got our steak and a couple burgers, and yeah, we're coming over. I got Missy picked out her change of clothes. I got to remember to take it with me when I go pick her up. So when she gets off work, we'll head over.
Okay. Do you guys know what time that is? Ish?
Yeah, I think 6-ish.
Okay. I gotta pick up my daughter Mary. Little Mary is gonna come over, spend the night and stuff, so do it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll call you.
All right. Sounds good, sir. Well, people are gonna come back here for part 2. Where else can
Yeah, you think people are gonna watch this?
I'm gonna come back for part 2. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat here.
Yeah, most people are like.
Well, I will clip this up and then try to make some magic and find some interesting times. Watch it. It'll probably explode on like the Food Channel or what you're talking about.
Right. And then they tune into part 2 and are like, what the heck? What are you talking about? Religion now? What?
But where can people connect with you at this point?
Best place is gonna be. I'm gonna say best place is probably Instagram if you're social media looking to connect. It's about the only one that I do on occasion. I'm not fantastic at it. Actually, I'm pretty good at it, but I just don't do it a lot. So, but yeah.
No TikTok right now?
I have not ventured into TikTok. Did I share with you about Parler? Parler is,
yes.
It's a newer social media platform that's on the uprising right now. So I've got a Parler account. I am at jpilgrim27. Now, if you want to really get some fascinating stories and insight, next time you need to ask me why I'm J Pilgrim. Okay, write this down. J Pilgrim 27. Why is that my handle? And there's a reason. There's a story there that that one will captivate.
No, it's very captivating. I'm interested. That's why 100%. That's why I want to pause and come back to it, because I really don't want to rush. I want to dive in because there's I know some of the stories, some experiences you've had, and I want you to feel comfortable in actually telling those stories and, going up, and then just Missy always teases you about going up, and then I want you to be able to take your time.
Yeah.
All right. I will definitely. I'll put your contact.
So many things I'm not saying right now. So many things.
All right. Say goodbye, everybody. All right, we'll see you guys next time, part 2. Make sure you tune in.